But the Barec property used to be the old University of California Research Station over on Winchester Boulevard. The city of Santa Clara voted to put it high-density housing and senior housing, and then the redevelopment money went away, and there's some acreage left, and they put in some high-density housing, and of course, we all know the traffic situation around Valley Fair. And Kirk is with a nonprofit, and they're doing some really incredible stuff over there. And I think that it really, really ties into this whole agricultural history and what we're doing. And so we've invited him to come and kind of update us and chit-chat.
Can I do the song though before we?
We haven't
played this song for a couple of years now.
Okay, you can do your song.
And then we're going to do this song, lead into Kirk, and then we're going to come back, I hope, for a little more fruit tree.
Yeah.
Okay. So this song says it all, I think. I never get tired of hearing a big yellow taxi.
We're going to put the trees
paradise, and they put in a parking lot. Well, Kirk, some of us here are veterans of Barec. In fact, I used to go there so often that my car would automatically go there, when I was anywhere in the region. So that's how many times I've been to Barec.
And go ahead, Jim.
Go ahead. No.
I just need to say that I knew Kirk because of the Barec, so us fighting to try to save that 17.5 acre property for so long and so hard, and I'm just really very proud that he's kept the torch going, and he has not let down the guard, and I hope that he can enlighten us of what's going on, and we can all get jazzed again. So anyway, Kirk.
Well, thank you.
Yours.
Well, thank you very much. Again, Kirk Vartan, resident originally of New York City, grew up in New York. I moved out here in '98, and I moved into the neighborhood in 2003, which is when I first started asking questions about the Barec site. So it's been almost 14 years. This month or next month is how long I've been involved in this property. And the real message that we had at the very beginning, and I kind of think about how it all comes around, is we wanted to keep public land in the public space. Keep public land public was a kind of our tagline for the Save Barec group when we were trying to save the 17 acres. And while we weren't successful in saving the 17 acres, I believe we were very successful in creating a very engaged community and a very involved kind of citizenry in terms of what you can do when you get together. I think we surprised a lot of people by getting a couple referendums on a ballot. And we really, we never compromised our integrity or anything that we were doing. We kept our message strong and true. And we were always focused on creating public benefit and public good. And that's really what drove us. And fast forward over a 10-year plus period, I got out of the once Summerhill got their project approved and started moving forward, I kind of took a break from the property, quite frankly, for about 2.5, 3 years. But about 3 years ago, I kept looking, and the front 6 acres right by Winchester, right by the Veterans Building right there, still not developed. And you ask yourself a question. It's like, what's going on? That was like the one thing that all the campaign material that was talked about was, it's all about the seniors and the open space. And what happened was all that got built was a single family home. So I'm not trying to dwell on the past, but I think it's important to respect what took place so that we know how we can kind of move forward on that. But the good news is that front 6 acres is still available, still open, I should say, undeveloped. And I came together with someone who I had a pretty big feud with, Dominic Caserta. We came together to talk about how can we do something more on this site that's been sitting here for so long, and it's a shame that we can't do more. So that kind of launched the effort to try and do more than just this kind of closed off, walled off senior apartment complex. And we went to the director of planning, and the director of planning at the time, Kevin Riley, he basically said, we don't know what to do with this site. We don't know what to do here because we don't have any money. We don't have any confidence that the nonprofit that was going to develop it can develop it, where they're going to get the money. So, why don't you just come back with what can we do here? Forget about the zoning. Forget about the general plan. What can be done on this site given where it is and what its potential is?
The site is on Winchester Boulevard between Stevens Creek and Forest, right across from the men's department at Valley Fair.
That's right. So it's absolutely. I always get caught up in this. I don't frame where we are. So the area that we're talking about, the old deciduous fruit field station, Barec site. It's located at 90 North Winchester, which is directly across the street from Valley Fair. If you know Burger Barn, or there's a Goodyear there, or Bank of the West, they're directly across the street from that. There's a Veterans Center there, a Veterans Administration. That's where this site is. And it's in the heart of a very, very economically vibrant area in San Jose and Santa Clara. It's right on the border of San Jose and Santa Clara. So within a half a square mile, you have Valley Fair with its incredible economic impact, almost $1 billion of revenue generated every year at that one mall. You have Santana Row to the south, and then all the development that's happening around there. The Century Theater is going to get developed by Santana Row. Some other buildings are going to get created, and there's approximately $2 to $2.5 billion of private investment happening over the next 2 to 7 years, if you will, in this area, which is it's so intense to think about what. These numbers are so big now that we kind of lose sight of what, it's not like $1,000 here, $100,000. We're talking billions of dollars that are being spent. Valley Fair in particular is spending $1 billion in their improvements. And so the importance of developing the Barec site in a respectful way to the community and to the area, I think, is really important and gives us a real opportunity. So that's why I got really excited when I heard the City of Santa Clara planning director say, we don't know what to do, why don't you go have at it? That kind of lit a little fire inside of me and said, wow, we have somebody that really wants to see what can be done here and explore that. So that, if anybody's heard of Win 6, or I have a website called Win 6 Village, WIN6village.org. This is a site that represents some of the work that took place over the next year to year and a half from that time, about 3 years. So it's about over 2 years ago now, 2.5 years ago, where we went through and started to vision what could be done on this site. And we coined the term urban agrihood as a respectful nod to what was here, and as a way to combine what is needed today in today's world. Here we are, 14 years later, it's still not done. Well, times have changed, and what do we need in our community now? And what we believe is we need a mixed use, mixed income, intergenerational community with focused around an urban farm of some kind. So that's what really drove the spirit of what I got involved with a few years ago. And I spent significant time and personal funds to get some of these renderings. The images you see there are renderings from real architects. These aren't just like made up stuff. They're rendered drawings from architects. And we engaged 3 different architects to really vision what can be done here with the mission. They all had the same mission, which is maximize the open space and create a living community that could support that. And that's really what has been taking place over the last couple of years. And Santa Clara has gotten to a point where they like this idea so much that they selected a developer that kind of reached out to us a little bit and started to work with us to present a proposal to explore doing that kind of development in that direction. And that company is the Core Companies. They got selected as a developer for this site. And they have a concept with an urban farm and some housing. Their concept really doesn't go far enough. It's kind of a good baseline concept, and I think that's a good, what I would call a backup or a worst case scenario. We have this great concept, but that's really not the target and the spirit of what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is what I think the term of art now is placemaking, where we're creating a sense of place and a sense of gathering where people want to go and want to be. They can come out of their Valley Fair experience and walk across the street in Winchester and experience what this valley used to offer, what it offers today, and create really a model example of sustainable design and placemaking.
Fantastic. Doesn't that excite you?
It sure excites me.
What does it look like? I mean, what is it going to? Show us a little bit, just so I have an idea of what.
Show the audience.
Yeah, show the listening audience.
We always do that on radio. Describe it.
Yeah, so I can't show you what it looks like. Although if you go to the website win6village.org, WIN the number 6 village.org. There's some ideas on the kind of scale and ideas that we can have on this site. But by no means is that something that we need to say, this is exactly what we're going to build, this is what we want to have, but it's the spirit of what we want to try and create. And that is, to me, the opportunity. It's looking beyond what our typical notions are and getting outside of our comfort zone of what traditional building is in this area, and this kind of generic buildings that we have that go up all the time that are just kind of developer focused just to get product built, but don't really respect what the community's interest and what the opportunities are for the area. And I would suggest that this area, the Winchester-Stevens Creek intersection area, is what the VTA calls, and this is their term, a second downtown, which is what they really mean is a second urban core that's being created because of all the economic vitality that's happening there. And I'm just going to throw out one technical statistic, and I've told I get too technical, so I'm not going to go into the data as much as I normally would. But I want to put a number out there, a couple numbers. Valley Fair and Santana Row generate, on average, on an annual basis, about 20 to 25 million visitor trips a year. Now that may sound like, okay, well, what does that mean? How many? What's a million? What's 10 million? What does that really mean? On average, that means between 50 and 70,000 people a day come into that area. Okay, so just take a minute to think about that. How does that work? Like, how do you get that many people coming through to experience an area? And you wonder where the traffic comes from. People, it's what's known as a regional destination. So understanding that it's one of the area's regional destinations, how can we capitalize on that foot traffic and that people that are already here for other reasons? How can we bring those people out of their cars and come walk and experience and look at assets and infrastructure that we think is the future?
What percentage would be open space of the 6.5 acres?
So So right now, the Barec site specifically is down to 6 acres. The Veterans site, which is just kind of like a little notch out of it, is a ½ acre. And then you have the Spino Commercial Center, that's 3/4 of an acre. So I would suggest if we look at this holistically and we look at this area and what this area can do from a redevelopment perspective, we can look at 7.25 acres, so just over 7 acres of land, and looking at combining those uses in a way that complement each other. So how much open space? Well, that depends on how comfortable we are and how willing we are to get out of our comfort zone and think about, it's a simple formula. The taller things get, the more open space you get. So if we want to look at the Winchester as, say, an urban corridor and a transit corridor, that we can start putting larger structures on the edge of that, well, then we can start building some of that land mass, some of those building heights on the edge there, maybe taller, and preserving the open space for the community to embrace.
So you're saying that they're going to develop, they're doing how much more development on that 6 acres?
So I'll tell you what the proposal is right now, and then we'll get back to your question, because your question is different than what the proposals that are being shared are right now. The developer put together a proposal that, like I said, it's a nice proposal, but it doesn't really embrace the spirit of how far we want to try and take this. They have kind of a very baseline model. It's nice. It's got an acre to an acre and a half of open space with a working urban farm. It's got a senior building. It's got a market rate building and some townhomes. And if you just look at this as a general project, I think it's pretty progressive from what this valley tends to produce. I don't think any other valley development I have ever seen try and incorporate a working urban farm or working sustainable features like this into any development. I don't think anybody's ever done that. So it takes it a lot farther than developers have taken. But this land is owned by the city of Santa Clara. It's a public asset, and that alone should drive the need for further public review and public engagement and public benefit. So I would suggest that the opportunity is far greater than what's being looked at right now because of the boundaries that have been placed on it in the past. And we have the opportunity to kind of go beyond that and see how far we can go.
How many units are already on the site that have been built in the back part?
So the back part, which is 10 acres, actually 11 acres, there's a 1 acre park in the very corner, and the 10 acres has 110 single-family homes with not much land. I mean, they're kind of they look like townhomes, but they actually are technically single-family homes because there's a air gap between the buildings. And these are, relatively tall single-family homes. They're 2.5 to 3.5 stories, kind of very vertical because there's not a lot of land. But again, what I'm suggesting, if you look at the website, just for contemplating what we want to do and how we can create urban characteristics in a suburban environment, we need to be very thoughtful about how we do that. And again, my opinion of how to approach it is, if you don't create urban areas in a suburban area, then you'll start to have urban things throughout your suburban community. And so if we're going to try and protect the suburban neighborhoods that we have, we need to really leverage those urban corridors, those transit corridors, wherever possible. And I think this site gives us a way to do something and take a little bit of risk, because the city isn't trying to make money off of this land. They've already agreed that this is a senior-focused property. So seniors will be living on it. They're not trying to make money on it. They just want to get senior housing built. So that gives us the land value as something that we can invest into the community benefit, including the senior development. So looking at that, how can we, expand the scope of what we're trying to do to allow us to take advantage of that land value if we have a project scope that's large enough to capitalize on that. So that's kind of where the direction I'm trying to suggest.
One thing came to mind when you said to utilize the space is to go tall. I would hope the tall is on the north part of the property, because if you're going to have any kind of urban farm, you're going to need the sunlight. And then you talked about how many people come in the cars and the pollution and just that is somehow there any way to do a perimeter catch tree, a tree that actually absorbs the pollution and filters the dust and debris from getting onto the land. And then there was also a legacy pesticide herbicide issue, I thought, on that land.
So I'll hit the first one. The first one is, can you put some perimeter trees or some kind of emission absorbing foliage and things like that? And I think the answer is I hope we do. But I'll take this opportunity to say that anybody who's listening to this that wants to get involved or learn about some of the things that are coming up, because we are going to be getting into what they call a placemaking exercise with a third party placemaking expert, and these are the people that come in. The company that the city of Santa Clara has engaged is called Project for Public Spaces. You can go to their website, pps.org. Project for Public Spaces, they started the placemaking effort back 40 years ago, and they've been worldwide experts in this. They're headquartered out of New York, but they do work in all 50 states and around the world. And they're going to be coming to Santa Clara to what I hope will be a model for how to create intense community engagement and participation and creating a great project.
Yeah, because some of the European models, show you use a washing machine once a week, maybe, where they have these communities where you have one washing machine for the whole community, and the whole thing is food production around the core. It's like the cities were built, and everything comes into the core where the people are living. Then that can be a tall structure, but then you have food production all the way around.
Yeah, I had I flashed with the VA facility there. Has anybody thought about cranking at least part of it in for veterans that are suffering from PTSD to benefit from urban horticulture?
Yeah, so one of the things that I think one of the programs that I think would be great, and again, this project site, it borders on two sides the veterans building, and I approached the director of Veteran Services that was there about 2.5 years ago when I started talking about this, saying, this is what we're thinking about, how can we work together, what do you think? And he's like, I love this idea. Let's see if we can get our space involved in that, and why don't we create new programs and horticultural therapies and things that don't even exist and become a model for other veterans administration services around the region, and be a place that becomes an asset for other veteran communities to come to see. It's like, okay, how can we replicate this in other parts of the county or in other parts of the state?
Oh, beautiful. Great.
That sounds terrific.
Yeah, so the spirit of what we're trying to do is how can we? I mean, when I never thought about incorporating the veterans pieces until I talked to the director there, and then now it's become kind of an expected outcome is to have veteran inclusion in that, which is great. But it's not just let's just leave the veterans building there, which is from the I think the 60s or 50s. I don't know. Veterans things. So the building's a little old and probably could use some updating. But rather than just saying, okay, well, let's come up with a weekly program or something like that, it's why don't we take over that space, incorporate the veteran structure into a new building in the new development, and create real programs that are integrated into the fabric of that development. So it's not just like an add-on or a bolt-on or a phase two thing that you add, but to integrate it into that. And to me, that takes the idea of what to do with this property to another level, because now we can start to make real progress on new ways to take care of our veterans that we just haven't done before. And our country's frustrated with how we treat our veterans and new programs, and this is a way to maybe innovate that.
Oh, that is so great.
It sure is, yeah, because, gardening is one of the most helpful things to get regrounded and get your heart set in a good spot.
Yeah.
And the history of the property, going back to the 20s when the Women's Relief Corps had the home for the Civil War widows. I think this military, if you will, tie, this history going back, is an important part of our community that nobody realizes. You go to Fort Point in San Francisco and you say, gee, this is really neat, right under the Golden Gate Bridge. How weird that this place was built here. Well, it was built for the Civil War. Yes, we had a very big presence in the Civil War in California, and people think that it stopped at the Mississippi River, and that wasn't the case. And I really, because of all the research we did and all the fighting and all the heartache with trying to save this piece of property. I think it's a miracle we still have 6 acres left.
I love it.
And
I never thought we would.
It renews my hope that we can go back to where we were. And you asked a question about the soils, the mitigation. We have pictures of crop dusters over all of Santa Clara County. So we would be hesitant. I would be hesitant to test the soil in my backyard. But I think that things have filtered out, migrated out. There hasn't been any chemical use on the property since, when did we shut down Barec?
99.
99. So I think that's
The legacy
kind of a
things are probably.
Yeah, I mean, we all know that Chlordane has a 99-year lease, but I think that the trace amounts are so minuscule right now that.
Is anybody going to test it, though?
Oh, it's been tested. We had tests done when we were trying to save the whole property, and the tests came back clean, not as bad as we had some. I think we had some arsenic,
Some dildrin and arsenic.
and so
Did they take it out?
yes,
Did they actually remove that soil?
yes.
Yeah, there was. I would say the state, what they called is they cleaned it up to acceptable conditions for open use, meaning you can build residential properties on that soil, which means that's the highest cleanliness that the soil can have. That doesn't mean it's been remediated so that it's gone. That means it's been remediated to where the trace amounts that are there are acceptable for human consumption or use or playing or whatever like
Or
that.
growing food and eating it?
Yeah, well, I think as one of the things that you mentioned about, especially with when you talk about like organics and growing things in food that we're consuming directly, I think we have a different view whether it's technically true or not. I think, optically we think of it, that soil better be really clean if I'm going to be growing food in it. And I think just a matter of practice, to go through the process of being, organically certified, whether it's technically organically certified or just we are comfortable that the soil is clean, that we need to do some kind of testing personally as new people to the soil to make sure that it's up to standards that we know it's there.
And plus, Santa Clara soils are what, Class A agricultural, so it's got to be fertile.
It's good land, and
I've grown many a thing, many a plant there.
And
It has a high pH, though. That's the thing.
if you go over to that land right now and see the weeds, the diversity of the weeds that are growing on there, it's a
That's
real
healthy.
indication of the health of the soil. As a matter of fact, when Clyde Elmore was he was a researcher or weed specialist from the university, when he planted all the status in that one little corner over by where the blueberries used to be, the status still comes up every year, even after no irrigation and the drought and everything else. And so I think the soil is very viable. And you mentioned something, Sue, about the contamination of vehicles. It's really interesting because at Prush, where Vegelution's garden is, you have that overpass from
Right,
101
yeah,
onto 680. And you think, oh my gosh, I envision all that pollutants just raining down on there. Well, we planted the row of redwood trees, and they have the soil tested, and there's no trace elements of hydrocarbons in the soil. So
And no lead?
No.
Cadmium?
Nothing's showing up, and it's because Vegelution wants to be an organic farm. Their soil has to be tested, and so it seems odd to me. I don't know where the pollutants are going, if they're staying on the roadway or what, but it just seems very, very odd to me. But it doesn't seem to be an issue. I don't think
it would be quite a bit different because cars are stopping and going stop. Where on the freeway they are kind of continually. So there might be a bit anyway. You were saying that you would do a little testing, like in a garden site or something, where the farm is.
We should be careful to say you, meaning it's not me personally. Okay, I'm not going to be doing the testing, but I'm going to be advocating to make sure that things like that happen.
Good.
I think that's an important element, and I would encourage anybody that you know or that is in earshot of this message that wants to get engaged and wants to stay engaged and help create what I would call kind of the next generation of community engagement and involvement, and evolving that process, kind of turning the existing process on its head, and getting people and community engaged way before project plans are designed, and then building that with the development community, so that community value is built in at the beginning of the project rather than trying to be bolted on at the end of the project when all the designs already happened. That's going to be happening over the next weeks, months. And I would encourage, we have a group of folks that are really focused on trying to work with the development community in a positive way, not just trying to resist everything that happens, but to embrace some of the change so that the change can incorporate the values that we want. And we believe that message will resonate with the developers, because if we can work with them at the beginning and show that we're supportive of their project can get done potentially quicker. It can, and quicker
Avoid
means
a lot of legal fees.
quicker means less fees.
Yeah.
It means saves money in interest and in financing and all the rest of that. And the biggest thing that I think it talks to is their resistance and reluctance to engage community, because all community they have dealt with in the past is no. I don't want this here. I mean, we were one of them. We were one of them for this site for different reasons. But in general, I attend a lot of community meetings, and people don't want change. They don't want to see things change, and they don't want anything to happen in their community. And the issues, whether it's traffic or parking or building heights or views and stuff like that, everybody has their own reasons that they're resistant to it, but that creates uncertainty and fear for developers, which makes them very cautious, which makes them pull back and do the minimums just so they can get by. Yep. And not try and be progressive. So if we as a community can step up and say, you know what, change is coming. We know change is coming. Change has been coming for the last 30, 40 years, and we're going to be growing by 650,000 people over the next 15 to 30 years. So how are we going to embrace that? Are we just going to kind of let it happen, or are we going to be deliberate and prescriptive on how we want those things to happen? And the way we can do that, if we're active and engaged and supportive of the development efforts, I think the developers will start to change their tune and want to work with us rather than not want to work with us. So the email address that I would ask if you do want to engage.
Is the PPS.org?
No, not the PPS.org. That's just a group that's going to come in and help facilitate. The organization that I'm working with is, again, win6village.org.
Okay.
If you do info@win6village.org, WIN. Info@ Win6Village, WIN, the number 6, village.org. That message will come to a group of us that will make sure that you're included in any communications and any events or activities that are happening. And I'm hoping that you will see, my goals aren't just I'm trying to incrementally change this. I want to move the needle substantially on how we do development in the Valley for sustainable, progressive, socially responsible growth.
To where we're actually using solar and water catchment and all that kind of
stormwater capture. I mean, all that, to me, those are all basic stuff that need to be done anyways. I'm not talking, to me, those are incremental changes. I'm talking about substantially changing about how we interface with the development community so that they will invest that money that they put in the reserves for marketing and selling their project and legal fees and all the time delays, taking that money and investing it up front into helping the community with what they're looking for and making a better project.
Well, I'm looking forward to getting an update on this.
Yes.
This agrihood, I love that. Agrihood.
It's a great term. It really, I don't know who.
I didn't create it.
It's a good one. That was something new. And I know you got a meeting.
Yeah,
but,
there's one thing I just so that people know. Today, City of Santa Clara, and this land is in the City of Santa Clara, and today they're having their council goal setting session. It's at the convention center. It goes from 3 to 9 p.m. It's a 6-hour meeting, and honestly, I don't know if that's even long enough, so it may be extended. It may have a secondary date. But I'm going to be advocating to making sure that the city places resources on this project. I think they're excited about putting resources into this. And so I think the time is right for us all to kind of rally together to kind of re-engage on something that we think that many of us thought was kind of a done deal and kind of written off, but we have a chance to really do something extraordinary here, and I hope we can all embrace that together.
Wow. Okay, well, Kirk, I'm sure glad you came. That was very exciting.
Well, thank
I
you
didn't
very
know
much
any
for the
of
time.
this.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew something, but not much.
Well, I've been following it,
Okay.
but I had my heart broken so hard with this whole situation, and I'm so jazzed that it's moving forward, because I think that we do have the opportunity to preserve and to do it right. I mean, we look around, and you've been to other communities, you've been to Europe, you see how they build.
Much better.
There's a place at Davis. Do you know the name of the place?
Cannery.
Where they have the houses are built and they all have one community garden. I met
That's the agrihood. That's the first agrihood in the area.
I met a woman from the mayor of Haines, Alaska, and she lives on a 95-acre communal farm where they all. And she was the mayor of Haines, Alaska. So I mean, this is bringing something to Santa Clara County that should have been here all the time. Really.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, it just kills me how unsustainable it's gotten, and we have to reverse this as a trend over the next 100 years to be a sustainable planet.
Robert and I went to a place up in Northern California called Real Goods.
Been there.
Have you been there? And it's that kind of a place where it's a learning center.
Yeah, it's amazing.
The stores are all made out of the
Hay
hay bales and windmills, and yeah, it's an amazing place.
And they're even sending the sewage through these huge reeds that just clean it all up. By the time it goes through this whole pond, you can drink it
Yeah,
with no chemicals, no sewage. Just
Stationary bikes.
yeah, stationary bikes to charge your cell phones. We should get those for our kids, right? So you want to talk on the phone? Okay, well, Kurt, thank you very much.
Well,
We're going to get back to fruit
thank you, Kurt.
trees.
Yeah,
and-
thank you. Thank you very much for the time. Yeah, I really appreciate
We'll
it.
see you in the future.
Okay, all right, I'll be
Kurt, I
around.
wanted to put your name here, Kirk,
Mhm.
and then the last name.
V like Victor, ARTAN.
Can we keep these?
You can have those, absolutely.
Here. Now you got
Bertan.
it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
You can always call me.
yeah, Sharon knows how to get a hold of me.
Thanks so much.
All right,
What do you
bet.
do in your other life?
I'm a pizza guy. I have a pizza shop.
I'll be darned.
That's a commercial
New
activity,
York.
though.
I mean, the best pizza
Where
in
do,
the
where do
world.
you do your pizza?
On Stevens Street, it's in the neighborhood on Stevens Creek.
Right next to the surplus store.
Is
Yeah.
that where we used to go have pizza?
No, that's
No.
Tony and Alvis.
Oh.
Let's go
Thank
there
you,
for
guys.
lunch today.
All right,
Take it easy.
you take care, guys.
Okay.
Okay.